Hello, today I'm going to talk about the Twin Peaks saga. This is kind of a retrospective plus occult symbolism. So I've been a big fan of David Lynch and Mark Frost's Twin Peaks for a very long time, pretty much since it came out. Since David Lynch passed not too long ago, sadly there will be no more Twin Peaks unless Mark Frost makes another book or something. The last shot in Season 3, The Return, is now the true end of the saga. So I'm going to talk about this based on that is the end. Now, there could be more coming. There's also the possibility that he has notes for another season, because I did hear some rumblings about that, so maybe that will come out in the future, I don't know. But this is going to be a two-part video. First part is a retrospective on all the seasons and the movie Fire Walk With Me. There will be spoilers for those. Second part is deep dive into the occult symbolism in the series. So the first thing I should say is that Lynch has said this in many interviews, that he wants the audience to interpret things for themselves. Before we get started, I want to share maybe the most important quote in Twin Peaks. Through the darkness of futures past, the magician longs to see. One chance out between two worlds, Fire Walk With Me. All right, we're going to start with Season 1. It was groundbreaking television, pretty much unlike anything else on the air at that time. I think people now have a hard time really understanding how revolutionary it was. I remember when it came out, it was loaded with mystery and atmosphere, kind of eerie, dreamlike mood. The question that was almost like a cultural revolution was, who killed Laura Palmer? It's very similar to the question, who shot J.R. Ewing? If you're old enough, you remember Dallas and how that was also a cultural revolution. Came out before Twin Peaks. Now with the internet, I don't know if it would translate the same way, but back then it was kind of water cooler talk, or, things that you would speak with your friends, and it was kind of this mystery that was hanging over everything. And the show was just gripping and haunting. I was in high school when it came out, so I definitely connected with a lot of the characters because half of the characters are in high school. Each week people would just be theorizing about what was going on, who killed her, this new character, what their story was, because the characters are all really crazy and kind of wacky. I do remember when The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer came out. Jennifer Lynch wrote it, and I think it came out in 1990, maybe my last year of high school, which was 91. But I remember that getting passed around, and I also read it. It deepened the mystery even more. There are pages missing from the end of the diary, which is very Lynchian, to keep things open-ended. Here's a fun fact. The audiobook is narrated by Cheryl Lee, who plays Laura Palmer, so that's kind of interesting. When the show aired, it was this kind of surreal blend of soap opera, crime drama, and supernatural horror, with this quirky humor, iconic characters, perhaps the best characters ever in a TV show. I mean, even very minor characters felt kind of real and quirky and alive. You just wanted to know more about all of them. There were small town secrets, this rot underneath, which is in most of David Lynch's work. There were affairs, drugs, corruption, and schemes, lots of schemes. Even the most terrible characters had something redeeming about them, aside from maybe Bob. But even like Benjamin Horne and Bobby, they all had these redeeming qualities despite being villainous at times, which made you kind of root for all of them in their schemes. I think one of the most amazing things in this series is Angelo Badalamenti's score. It's really hard to separate it from the series, partly because it was done on a TV budget. They're kind of repeating the songs over and over again, so they really get it in your head, and every time they come on, it puts you in a certain mood. And Laura Palmer's theme and the song Falling, when they come on, it almost kind of chokes you up. It's this weird psychological trigger. It doesn't even really matter what's happening in the scene on the television, but you automatically start feeling emotional when the song comes on. The first season inspired future TV series like X-Files, Lost, Stranger Things, many. Cable TV series would not really exist, like HBO and things like that. without Twin Peaks. Okay, so for season 2, it was the resolution of Laura Palmer's murder. Spoilers, Leland Palmer was the killer, possessed by Bob, and it was shocking and tragic. I don't know if Ray Wise gets enough accolades, but his performance as Leland was phenomenal. It went all over the place. It could be chilling, it could be heartbreaking, you know, when he was singing or something, it could be kind of kitschy. He was just excellent in it. The studio wanted the killer revealed, but Lynch and Frost were against it. It kind of created a rift. That's why they kind of went off in the second season and the quality dipped for a while, is because they were just annoyed that they had to give up the murder. It was supposed to go on till the end. So it's something to think about, like what would the show have been like if they had maintained it? Would it have lasted 5 seasons or something? It's very possible. It would have drove people mad though, to not know, you know, for 5 seasons who the killer was. In season 2, there's the Maddie Ferguson murder scene, which is, I think, kind of a highlight. Bringing in Maddie was interesting. She is a look-alike of Laura, played by the same actress, Cheryl Lee. You know, it's very Lynchian to have her come there and look the same, and I'll get into more of the doppelganger thing in a minute. Season 2 introduced more lore about the Black Lodge, the White Lodge, and the mysterious inhabitants, the giant, the one-armed man, Mike. Wyndham Earl added layers to the mythology, especially to Cooper's story. And the doppelgangers and time loops became central themes. In the first season, it wasn't really like that much. There was the introduction of that stuff, but not like deeply. I mean, some standouts would be Wyndham Earl, Gordon Cole, played by David Lynch, Denise Bryson, maybe the first transgender character, I'm not really sure, but played by David Duchovny, Annie Blackburn by Heather Graham, also a standout. The infamous finale, How's Annie? The Black Lodge sequence is one of the most surreal, terrifying, and brilliant moments in TV history. Cooper's doppelganger escapes, possessed by Bob, leaving the real Cooper trapped, and it ends on a horrifying cliffhanger that wasn't resolved for 25 years, which is pretty crazy and pretty amazing that they decided to do a season 3 eventually. Now, with all that said, there are some jump the shark moments in season 2. Nadine gains superhuman strength and believes she's a teenager. There's the Pine Weasel fashion show. Andy, Lucy, and Dick Tremaine and their love triangle is pretty silly. The middle of the season dragged with a lot of subplots. James and Evelyn being the worst offender. Thankfully, Lynch and Frost returned to be involved in the last few episodes, and they kind of brought the show back into form. Though season 2 is flawed, I definitely think it pushed some boundaries, and it definitely set the stage for the return. Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. So this is David Lynch's most divisive film. I remember when it came out, I was working in a movie theater and it was not well received. I thought it was amazing, but a lot of people did not like it. It is a rough story. It isn't really like the quirky soap opera. You can see a lot of that vibe in the missing pieces. If you don't know what that is, they cut out a bunch of things from the original cut, which was several hours long. I think maybe I read it was like 4 hours long or something. All of that stuff ended up on this extra stuff called the missing pieces. And it's mostly the other characters that aren't central to Laura Palmer's story. So many of the minor characters were just cut out completely, even though they shot scenes for them. Looking at both things, I think it was wise to do that because the tone of the movie is not quirky. The tone is quite serious and disturbing, and if you were to have those things in there, the tonal shifts would be too great. I'm not sure about this, but I think this might be one of the first prequels. Star Wars made that idea popular, and The Hobbit and other things that were prequels, Prometheus, things like that. When you're talking about Fire Walk with Me, you have to discuss Cheryl Lee as Laura Palmer. She delivers a gut-wrenching, raw performance. She should have won an Oscar for this role. It would never have been considered, but she was just great in it. I also think the sound design is excellent. It creates an eerie, dreamlike experience. Lynch was very focused on sound design. You can definitely hear it in this. It's an unflinching look at abuse and addiction and self-destruction, and it has many ties into season 3. At the time, there were things in it that seemed very esoteric, and it was like, why is this in here? But those things turned out to be very important for season 3. So my question is, was it all part of the plan? Back then when this was created, were they already thinking that, oh, we might have to resolve these things in a different season? I mean, but season 3 created all its own new threads anyways. I don't know why they would feel the need to do that. There are many things that were introduced here that became major parts in season 3. And let's get to season 3, called The Return. It was audacious, frustrating, and mind-bending. But I have to give them credit, they didn't repeat themselves, and they could have. And many revivals do. They refused to give fans what they expected, and I think that was a very good move. This is more of like a 16-part movie, that's how Lynch defines it. Cheryl Lee did kind of a tour de force in Fire Walk with Me, but I think this is Kyle MacLachlan's tour de force. He plays 4 characters in this, all very different. And again, he should have won many awards for this. A standout episode is episode 8, Got a Light. This might be the greatest hour of television ever made. It's definitely up there. It's absorbing in the way that 2001 is absorbing. You aren't really sure what is happening, but you are riveted and you just can't get enough of it. The atomic bomb sequence, it blows your mind when you're watching it. It's genuinely disturbing horror. Season 3 had so many great cameos, but I think the greatest one was Wally Brando, played by Michael Cera. A lot of season 3 doesn't really go into the quirky as much as the first 2 seasons, but Wally Brando definitely goes there, and that whole scene with him in the parking lot with his parents is just, it's classic. The ending is quite shocking and existential, and it recontextualizes the entire series. A lot of people say it was left dangling, but I feel like it was an end. That's the takeaway I got from it. Like I said before, I'm curious if notes will come out for season 4. Maybe Mark Frost will make another book about it or something. I'm not sure. Even though the ending was ambiguous, I definitely feel like it was an end. Okay, so let's get into the occult symbolism. I'm going to start with Jungian psychology and archetypes. The shadow is a major part of this. Bob and the Doppelgängers. And Bob is the embodiment of raw, destructive impulse. He represents repressed desires and the darker aspects of the self. There's the anima and animus, Laura and Cooper's journeys. They kind of mirror each other. You could see Laura as both victim and divine feminine, bringing light and dark. There's Cooper's struggle with his inner shadow and his feminine intuition, especially in the first 2 seasons. There's the collective unconscious, the Red Room, and the lodges. It's a manifestation of archetypal dreamscapes and the unconscious mind. Let's talk about doppelgangers, dualities, tulpas, and mirrors. So back to the shadow, these doppelgangers are dark mirror images of the self. It's like a split consciousness, psychological fragmentation, the soul is divided. At times there's spiritual integration and the merging of opposites. The mirror plays a big part, especially in the Cooper Bob scene. It's like self-reflection and the ability to see beyond physical reality. There's this grappling with the shadow when he breaks the mirror. It's almost like he can't look at himself. While the doppelgangers seem to be in the mystical worlds of the lodges, a tulpa is a thought form or mind-made entity created through intense focus and belief. It may develop its own consciousness but remains tied to the creator. So there are many doppelgangers and tulpas, and they're slightly different. There's the Laura Palmer, Maddie Ferguson, Carrie Page connection. Mr. C, or Bad Coop, Cooper, Dougie, and Richard connection, the Diane and Linda connection. In some cases, these are duplicates in other realities, like Carrie Page or Richard and Linda. But in other cases, like Diane and Dougie, they are placeholders for the actual soul. Theosophy and occult influences. So in Theosophy, there are white and black lodges. It's a duality akin to the astral planes in Theosophy. White Lodge is enlightenment. The theophysical concept of Mahatma, the Great White Lodge, consists of a group of ascended masters, and the Black Lodge is karmic reckoning. The Red Room, a subset of the Black Lodge, introduces a dreamlike space that operates outside of normal time and reality. This liminal space is a place of transition, transformation between the 2 realms, almost like a purgatory. The red curtains are the boundary between the mundane and the supernatural, the veil between the worlds. It's almost like a womb. Electricity and spiritual energy play a big part in Twin Peaks. It's used as a conduit between realms. The sycamore trees, the fireman, the electrical sockets. You could say the doppelgängers are kind of astral projection. Cooper's division into two beings reflects mystical ideas of bilocation. Buddhist and Eastern philosophical themes. There is karma and samsara. Karma is the principle of cause and effect, cosmic law. Samsara is the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. You see these cycles in Laura's fate and Cooper's quest. The lodge is like a bardo state where souls confront their karma. There's ego dissolution and enlightenment. Cooper's journey as a loss of ego leading to self-discovery. His failure to save Laura as an attachment to illusion. He really keeps trying and trying, but it's like his curse. He's never really going to be able to do it. And you could look at it in a Gnostic way that is his illusion that he needs to break through. Folklore and American mythology. The woods and nature as a mystical force. Ghostwood Forest is an ancient malevolent presence. There's this connection to American indigenous folklore and land spirits, the small town darkness and hidden sin underneath, the idyllic Twin Peaks as a facade hiding deep corruption, parallels to the folklore tropes where the idyllic masks the uncanny. There's also the influence of Lynchian Americana. The 1950s aesthetics evoke nostalgia laced with dread, not too much removed from Blue Velvet, if you've seen Blue Velvet. The Log Lady is like an oracle. If you haven't seen her intros that were on the VHSs, I believe, there is a playlist on YouTube. You should definitely check it out. Deputy Hawk is the native mystic, the old ways connected to the forest. The cosmic and occult forces at play. The angelic and demonic dichotomy. An ongoing tension between angelic and demonic forces. Laura Palmer, Bob, Leland Palmer. In season 3, it's Mr. C or Bad Coop. There is the supernatural guide in Agent Philip Jeffries. He has these cryptic messages. They're like revelations that highlight some knowledge that is inaccessible to the unprepared. Cooper can often decipher many of these things, but he needs time. And Jeffries transcends reality. There's more on that in a second. The entity Judy or Jaude, it's rippled through reality. Archetype of primal, chaotic, feminine energy. In stories from ancient Sumerian mythology dating to at least 3000 BC, Jaude was the female form of the Utuku, an escaped wandering demon that feasted on human suffering. It was said that if the female and male form, known as Baal, ever married while on Earth, the union would produce an even more malevolent being, hastening the end of the world. So she is a type of spirit or demon, often associated with possessing individuals or causing misfortune. On February 16, 1989, Jeffries inquired after Miss Judy at the Palm Deluxe Hotel in Buenos Aires. The desk clerk gave him a letter that the young woman had left for him. The very same day, Jeffries materialized for a few minutes at the FBI office in Philadelphia. During this visit, he initially stated to Cole that he did not want to talk about Judy, but later emphasized that she was positive about this and that he had found something in Seattle at Judy's. A search of Jeffries' hotel room at the Palm Deluxe revealed that the word Jaude had been carved into the wall behind the telephone. The name was hidden beneath wallpaper when the room was remodeled in 1997. I actually think this was a nice addition to the mythology. The way that they expanded it in season 3 was just brilliant, in my opinion. Human sacrifice. There are many human sacrifices in Twin Peaks. The obvious one is Laura Palmer, but there's also Teresa Banks, Maddie Ferguson, Ronette Polanski was a near sacrifice. Chester Desmond, the FBI agent, is the vanished investigator. Nobody knows what happened to him. He could be considered a sacrifice. Annie Blackburn, the broken offering, her mind was sacrificed. In season 3 with the glass box, they were definitely a sacrifice. The people in the radio station murdered by the woodsman who recites the chilling incantation. This is the water and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes and dark within. Richard Horn could be considered a sacrifice. He's the failed prodigy. Mr. C sacrifices him. Major Garland Briggs, he's headless. There's so much wrong with this, but he's a kind of sacrifice. And you could even say that Sarah Palmer is a sacrifice, an ongoing one. But there are many, many, many others. And I think all these things are tied to what they call garmonbosia, which I believe is a word that's made up for the show, but it basically means pain and sorrow. Where does cream corn figure into the workings of the universe? What really is creamed corn? Is it a symbol for something else? Margaret Lanterman, the log lady. In the mythology of the show, it's a source of sustenance for certain spirits, including the arm. Philip Gerard, a host for the spirit Mike, accused Bob's host Leland Palmer of stealing corn that he had canned over the store. After killing Laura Palmer, Bob and Leland appeared in the Red Room before Gerard and the Arm, both of whom demanded in unison, "Bob, I want all of my garmonbosia." If you look deeper into the connection of corn to evil spirits, the Mesoamerican gods have a flayed god called Xipe Totec. It's an Aztec god linked to agriculture, fertility, and rebirth, particularly in relation to maize or corn. However, the god required human sacrifices where victims were flayed alive, mimicking the shedding of corn husks. Other gods and folk tales with similar weirdness tied to them have corn as this evil presence. Portals, thresholds, and liminal spaces. The picture of the doorway that was given to Laura Palmer by Mrs. Chalfont or Tremont. "This would look nice on your wall," she says. For me, she might be the creepiest character in the entire series, and the picture sums up the strangeness of liminal spaces and portals in the series. But there are many others. Glastonbury Grove, the sycamore trees, the convenience store or the Dutchman's Lodge, a shifting location where spirits like the Arm, Bob, and the Woodsman gather. It's like a way station between worlds. The glass box experiment in New York, a scientific attempt to observe the supernatural, leading to an attack by an extra-dimensional entity. Cooper's electrical sockets are also a kind of conduit or liminal space. The finale and Laura Palmer's true role. In the series finale, Laura is the sacrificial divine feminine. Her suffering embodies the spiritual struggle between light and dark. Laura is the one, suggests her role as a Christ-like or Sophia-like figure. Cooper's mistake in the illusion of salvation. He attempts to save Laura but disrupts the cosmic balance. His ultimate failure signifies the futility of controlling fate. The final scream and the collapse of reality. Laura's scream ruptures reality and symbolizes an awakening from the dream possibly. Maybe the entire series of Twin Peaks is a dream. There's the echo of Gnostic enlightenment breaking through the false world's illusion. Let's get into a few of the particulars of the symbolism. The owl symbolism. The owl is a reoccurring motif. The owls are not what they seem. It references kind of Moloch or the Bohemian Grove. And if you haven't seen the British TV series, The Owl Service, I kind of think maybe Lynch might have seen this. There is a lot of interesting noise, scratching and stuff that I think is in many David Lynch projects, but it's kind of this folk horror series and it definitely has some similarities to Twin Peaks. The owl is the chosen animal form of Bob. The owl symbol is also found on the pole. Native American pictograph found by Wyndham Earle in the Owl Cave. The Owl Cave was a cave within Ghostwood National Forest, part of a chain of lava tubes connected to dormant volcanoes, named for the many owls which inhabited it. It was significant for its ancient Native American petroglyphs carved into stone walls. Mike's ring in Fire Walk With Me. The symbol on the ring mirrors like Masonic and occult glyphs, almost like a sigil. You could see owls as messengers of otherworldly knowledge. So colors play a big part in Twin Peaks as well. The Red Room is passion, danger, the subconscious, a womb. The zone, the purple sea, the purple light. This intense lighting is often associated with spiritual transformation or occult enlightenment. The scene with Laura bathed in blue or purple light from Fire Walk With Me, especially when she sees the angel at the end. The blue rose or Project Blue Book. Blue is a symbol for mystery, transcendence, coded knowledge. The blue rose represents a mystical union, a rare, almost unattainable state of spiritual knowledge. The chevron floor, the black and white symbolism is all over the occult with the Masons and the two pillars, numbers and codes. I'm not going to go too deep into this. I'll be here all day if I do, but here are a couple of examples that I think kind of sum it up. In season 3, Cooper journeys through different sockets, where socket 3 and socket 15 are combined to form the number 315, which was Cooper's room number from the Great Northern Hotel. The number 7 appears frequently, such as in the elevator number where Philip Jeffries appears. Dougie Dale's workplace is Lucky 7 Insurance, and the slot machine win is on 777s. People becoming objects. There is a reverse anthropomorphism here. In occult symbolism, the black cube represents the material world or the prison of the soul. You could also see this as like the golem, a lifeless body and animated by external forces. It can mean enslavement, oppression, or even the deconstruction of the identity. There are several examples beyond just the doppelgängers and tulpas. Josie Packard, after her death, her body is mysteriously transformed into a doorknob. This symbolizes her ultimate reduction to something that can be controlled and manipulated, a mere object to be used by others, which in life, she was also used by many people. Philip Jeffries, a former FBI agent, he's seen mysteriously disappearing in a CCTV video. Then in the return, he becomes a kettle. It serves as a metaphysical container, a vessel that holds and transports characters between dimensions or realms. And to me, it actually looks more like an alchemical device. The man from another place, arm, it's reduced to a floating disembodied electric tree. Let's talk about the paper letters under the fingernails. In witchcraft, the binding power is linked to the iron content of nails. There is a hidden communication going on. It's a ritualistic act where the killer is compelled to hide their messages, making the victim part of a macabre game. They are like breadcrumbs, hoping someone will come along that's smart enough to piece it together. The killer wants a worthy adversary, not unlike the Zodiac Killer or something like that. The jade ring and arm. In Norse mythology, Tyr is known for sacrificing his own arm to the wolf Fenrir to ensure the gods could bind the beast, demonstrating his bravery and commitment to justice. In many mythological traditions, one-armed figures are often seen as possessing wisdom and insight into the supernatural, or they may be seen as tricksters or guides in dark journeys. Philip Gerard, his arm was severed as part of a spiritual exchange linked to the possession of his body by Mike. Laura Palmer put on the ring just before her death. Teresa Banks' arm was numb, the powerful artifact used to anchor or control spiritual energies. It stops the flow of energy. FBI agent Chet Desmond tried to grab the ring from under a trailer and he disappeared. The arm in the lodge is connected to the ring as well. In the expanded universe, there's a whole history going back to 1805. It's said that occultist Jack Parsons was wearing the ring and he later died as well. This is a bit of an Easter egg. Apparently, the character of Gerard was inspired by the fugitive TV series. The Bookhouse Boys, a secret society, operated from the shadows. They draw inspiration from esoteric orders such as the Rosicrucians, the Gnostics, the Knights Templar, and the Arthurian Knights. They are on a mission. They want to combat malevolent entities and occult adversaries, but also to safeguard hidden knowledge. One-Eyed Jacks is a casino brothel. The things at One-Eyed Jacks are not what they seem. Something is hidden or masked. A jack usually means cunning or deception or knavery. One-eyed is the all-seeing eye or partial vision or understanding. Sarah Palmer's face, she pulls it off, shedding of the persona. She presents, revealing a darker, more demonic force underneath. Her self is replaced by an alien consciousness. Was it always there in season 1 and season 2? Was she the one who possessed Leland? Ultimately, the mask reveal, in my mind, channels The Mask of the Red Death a little bit by Edgar Allan Poe. This idea that behind the mask is just death, and that's what's coming for you. Blind NATO and Justice. NATO's muteness serves as a form of suppression. The Justice card in the tarot is traditionally depicted as a figure holding scales, often blindfolded, and it represents balance, fairness, and the weighing of actions. And speaking of the tarot, there is this Twin Peaks tarot deck, which is very interesting. And when you look at it, you realize how much these characters fit into the archetypes, like really well. They are great cards, and the art is quite accurate. The last thing I want to mention is the weirdness with Laura Palmer's theme. When Angelo Badalamenti was creating the MIDI scroll for the theme, David Lynch and him noticed this, which is pretty crazy. This was not done intentionally. I don't think, and they were both surprised by it, that is the universe telling you you're on the right track. And that's all I got. And that is just the iceberg of all of the mysteries in Twin Peaks. I actually put this video off for a long time because I just didn't know how to handle it or how to wrangle it in. The beauty of the series is that it does have so many interpretations, and people will probably be talking about it forever. And so I could have maybe done several videos and just broke everything down per season and stuff, but I just think that's been done other places, and I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on some of the things. So that's all I got for today. Take care. Bye-bye.